Hi, my name's Alan Skinner. I'm the director of the Lean Six Sigma Business Excellence Institute, and in partnership with the University of Technology Sydney, or UTS, we provide a very full range of organisational improvement and organisational excellence programs. There has been a series of podcasts on the BlackBelt program we conduct through the University of Technology Sydney. We have a podcast on the overall program, and there has been two previous podcasts on Black Belt stages 1 and 2. In this podcast, I am covering the final stage of Black Belt, that is Black Belt stage 3. Of course, Black Belt stages 2 and 3 are the complex end of the Black Belt set of competencies, whereas Black Belt Stage 1 or Green Belt is the foundational program for Black Belt. In the overview podcast, we talked about a spiral curriculum and how as you go through the various stages, foundational concepts are added to, are dealt with in greater detail and complexity. So let me talk about Black Belt Stage 3. This program is conducted in July of each year, and reminding you, Black Belt Stage 1 is done quarterly, and then the Black Belt program as a sequence starts in May, where Black Belt Stage 1 is conducted. A month later, Black Belt Stage 2 in June, and then a month later, Black Belt Stage 3 in July. So stages 2 and 3 are conducted once a year, unless of course organisations have sufficient numbers and ask us to conduct the program in-house. Remember, the numbers are much smaller at Black Belt stages 2 and 3 because this is the peak of the competencies and the role as an improvement consultant, if you like. So Black Belt stage 3 assumes the prior learning conducted in Black Belt stage 1. And in the second podcast about Black Belt Stage 2, we talked about the assumptions around already understanding foundational concepts and the whole methodology around DMAIC and so forth. Change management, facilitation, etc. that was begun in Stage 1. In Stage 2 as well, there is an assumption that the work around setting up a project in a more complex level, organizational analysis, and concepts and skills, high-level concepts and skills around baseline measurement with control charts and capability that could be used later on at the pilot, implement, control stages have been developed, to the point that the work that's been done as an assignment is a form of revision, because the beginning of Black Belt Stage 3 starts with people talking about the work that they've conducted around their assignments. And that includes their improvement plan as a draft and their experience around that, and the use of measurement analysis and facilitation. So if you like, that's the beginning of Black Belt Stage 3, and in that context, where review is necessary, it's conducted through the program. There are 9 modules in the Black Belt Stage 3 workshop. It goes for 5 days again, Monday to Friday. And there are a number of texts, including the workshop texts. Again, it's some 300 odd pages. It's not a set of slides. Let me talk briefly about the objectives and structure of the program, the core of it, if you like. In essence, whilst it's not tied to the DMAIC structure, this last stage focuses on the analyze, design work that would be conducted, and implementation work that would be conducted in an improvement project. And whilst they are not the focus of the modules, that's the content focus, if you like. So in terms of analysis, looking at value stream techniques at a more complex level is certainly part of this program going forward. beyond BlackBelt Stage 1, and then looking at analysing relationships through correlation and regression at both the simple and multiple regression forms. And of course, that means both in Stage 2 and Stage 3, but of course also in Stage 1, quite a lot of use of Minitab is carried out in the practice of the analyses. On top of that, Quality Companion, where it's relevant, is also made use of. And then, of course, the design of experiments as a field is dealt with, beginning with the language and structure of experimental design, foundational ideas, principles, types, tools, and so forth to begin with. And then this is followed with some practice around a case study for design of experiments. And the approach perhaps is the reverse in the way in which design of experiments might be conducted in a real project, simply because of the simplicity in explaining it that way. So the approach begins with experiments with one factor, for example, and within that, for example, dealing with t-tests and one-way ANOVA, the use of blocking, and so forth. And then moving into full factorial experiments, and so experimental patterns, tying to the language of experiments, dealing with factors and levels, background variables, and so forth. And again, the use of Minitab in helping with the analysis, both at the graphical as well as statistical levels. And finally, getting into fractional factorial designs and other advanced concepts and their use in the conducting design of experiments. One of the things we talk about is that design of experiments can go from broad isolation of the factors that are of relevance through to then fooling around with, based on theory of course, fooling around with a few factors. And so in practice it might be the other way around, moving from fractional factorial designs down to experiments with a few factors. And at the advanced level we deal with other techniques which are very well supported by Minitab, such as response optimizer and so forth, and the use of blocks. Apart from that heavy focus on analysis, and by the way, the case study involves the fun use of a helicopter experiment in the context of dropping aid and doing that efficiently. And so you can see some images of that. People have a lot of fun collecting the data in a practical sense there, and considering the interrelationship between factors built on their observation and so forth. But beyond the design of experiments work and the analysis work, etc., we then get into creative solution development, using that knowledge to build solutions, and particularly expanding on what work was done in BlackBelt Stage 1, particularly around creativity, getting into de Bono techniques more specifically, and challenging people to try and use stimulus to get out of the ruts of thinking, get out of the assumptions they've made that might hold them back about seeing potential solutions. So there's a whole range of lateral thinking techniques we deal with. For example, concept extraction, the use of random words, reverse brainstorming, and so forth. Much of this, of course, is built around Edward de Bono's work and others. We then spend a reasonable amount of time on change management, again expanding on the basic models and techniques and both analysis and solutions that have been dealt with in stages 1 and 2. We encourage people to see the journey of an improvement project as almost two levels. One is the whole journey of change management overlaid on top of the DMAIC journey, if you like. In that context, one of the models we certainly talk about, apart from Cotter's work and others, includes the ADCAR model, and this is dealt with as an overlay, if you like, which has implications for analysis and activity that one might do during the improvement project, which is fundamentally a change project, a transformation project. One of the other elements of complexity we get into is the emotional reaction to change and some of the approaches that can be used here. As a means of explaining the spiral curriculum, we encourage people at BlackBelt Stage 1 not to take on challenges of resistance that might be known about, but to actually try and leave that to the experience of a BlackBelt Stage 2 or 3 type project. There's enough to do in a basic, when I say basic, a moderately complex project in any case. And finally, we get into the design for Six Sigma models, concepts and tools. And of course this is directed at, if you like, larger scale projects in general, but this can be applied at a smaller scale as well, where you don't have a problem, you have an opportunity to pursue the design of a new product or service or new value stream and so on. So we get into the model and some of the analysis techniques, including the house of quality and customer experience design around this whole field, and have fun with a case study in the practice of this. And one of the texts that people get at BlackBelt Stage 3 is around design for Six Sigma models and tools. We complete the BlackBelt Stage 3 program or workshop, if you like, discussing the implementation of organizational improvement as a program, as a culture within the organization, as aside from one project or one program of work. And finally, let me talk about the assessment and certification approach. The assessment that was done as an assignment between BlackBelt Stages 2 and 3 is part of the assignment, if you like, type assessment. And then there is a short test, a little bit more complex than perhaps at the end of BlackBelt Stage 1, where Minitab is used to complete analyses and so on. And that assessment is completed at the end of the day, on the last day. Now, those two assessments constitute 30% of BlackBelt Stage 2-3 certification. That is certification at the Black Belt, if you like, level, full Black Belt level, not the Green Belt level. And more will be said about certification in the podcast just on certification. Again, you can download information about BlackBelt Stages 2 and 3 from the website.